Now, here's the thing. You would think this is a new thing in the Philippines. But did you know that before this country was colonized and run by Spain, this was the most pro-LGBT place on the planet? Right. And a lot of people are not aware of this, but it is a fact. And do not be offended by the facts. Look, it doesn't matter what your ancestor did or believed 500 years ago, but I'm just going to give you the facts. In ancient culture here with the indigenous religions, there was the Babaylan, which were either women or homosexual men. The homosexuals were the spiritual leaders here in the Philippines before Catholicism came in. Now, this is not a compliment to Catholicism at all. The only real difference is they were openly homos and the priests are just quietly homos. But the Babaylan were women or male homosexuals. And before Spain came here, guess what men did? They married other men.
And in the famous Boxer Codex, Bayugin was defined as someone who ordinarily they dress as women, act like prudes, and are so effeminate that one who does not know them would believe they are women. Almost all are impotent for the reproductive act, and thus they marry other males and sleep with them as a man and a wife with carnal knowledge.
Gay marriage was legal and common and done all the time in the Philippines. Fact check me on everything that I'm saying if you don't believe me. And there was a famous phrase in ancient Philippines, there's no spirituality without femininity. So either you're a woman leader or you're a guy that acts like a woman. And what these male homosexuals, the Babaylan that were the spiritual leaders, because what they said is they can get in touch with the spirit world better than other people. I'm sure they can. I'm sure they can get in touch with devils better than I can. Right. And the terms given to them were asog, A-S-O-G, which means a female animal that cannot give birth, or biok or biog, and that term derived into Visayan into biot. That term comes from the male homosexual spiritual leaders here in the Philippines. And even the language itself, there's a reason you have these gender neutral pronouns. Siya, niya. You say why? Because they were more fluid in their understanding of gender.
It is important for us to remember that there are no gender pronouns in the many indigenous languages of the Philippines. Gender and sexuality were seen by our ancestors as something fluid.
We can't just say, him and her. That's offensive. We can't just say he and she. So we have a gender neutral term. Why? Because they had a more fluid and more understanding version of gender than we do in 2023. And what you're going to see these liberal, hardcore LGBT, feminist culture here saying, we need to go back to our Filipino roots. Now look, this is not a credit or a compliment to Catholicism, but let me tell you something, that fixed a lot of the problems that exist 500 years ago. Men marrying men, homosexuals as the spiritual leaders. This country was a mess, and it is going back to what it was 1,000 years ago. Right. Look, these native religions that exist in the Philippines were wicked as hell. Right. And how you can be worse than Catholicism, I don't know, but they managed to do that. That open homosexuals were the spiritual leaders here in the Philippines. I used to wonder, and it makes sense now, why is there such a hardcore LGBT culture here? And it's actually because, countries really never go away from their roots. And I'll tell you what, the United States, when the Native Americans were the ones ruling it, same exact garbage went on. Basically the same thing. That's what happens with societies that don't have the Bible as the Word of God as their basis. They become reprobate, wicked, disgusting, perverted societies. That's what the Philippines was like 1,000 years ago. And you know what? We are going back to those roots.